probably seen the news about Intel by now and what's going on with all the different CPUs. There's a lot of confusion out there, and I think actually some misunderstandings from what I've seen in comments on my videos. Panic, perhaps, worry, understandably, and some other issues. Now, I've been building with Intel for a long time, even before I became a YouTuber, because I've always just liked Intel CPUs and Intel motherboards, and it's just been what I've done. The issues lately are a bit troubling, and I myself have experienced problems. So you may have heard various bits of news about Intel processors from 13th and 14th gen. And I think there's not really a great deal of official news from Intel themselves, although there is a little bit, so I'll get to that in a minute. But there's certainly a lot of speculation, rumour, and other news from outlets like Gamers Nexus and The Verge and beyond on the various different problems. The thing seems to be down to a variety of different things which have actually happened over the last couple of years. And so some of it may well be microcode and BIOS issues. Some might be oxidation of CPUs, meaning at hardware level they're broken at the factory. Although Intel's yet to officially confirm whether that's the case from what I've seen, and indeed which CPUs are affected, and if it was a batch of them, what date and time frame that's on. But the reason I wanted to do this video is because I've seen, well, two reasons. One, I've seen people sort of panicking and dismissing Intel CPUs. Obviously, there are people like myself that own Intel CPUs that are worried about the future of them. For example, the build behind me that you can see here. That was built with a 13th gen i9 13900K. I also have another one which I did in the NZXT H7 Flow RGB, which was built with the 14th gen i9. I was personally running the i9 14900K in my own machine on a daily basis, and a while ago, good few months ago now, I did a video on why I downgraded to the i7 instead. I was under the misapprehension that actually the i9 was the issue, but it turns out the i7 might have problems as well. And at the time, I did a video on how to fix the problems with BIOS updates and tweaks. MSI and Asus and others released BIOS updates which are designed to offer Intel's baseline profile settings and other tweaks that you can do in the BIOS that then basically meant that you could fix stability issues. And I want to say that I actually did fix the stability issues with my i9. So I was having crashes, blue screens of death, just instability problems, frame drops and other things with the i9. And it just kept happening, kept having issues with it. I got frustrated, assumed it was a motherboard problem, swapped out my motherboard for an MSI motherboard and changed the CPU as well to an i7. Turns out actually it was an i9 issue. And so what I did was I revisited the motherboard that I got rid of, and I updated the BIOS on it. I tweaked the settings and I tested, and that fixed the stability problems that I was having. So what I've seen is people commenting saying if your CPU is being unstable, then that immediately means it's completely broken and it's not going to work. Now, I've actually managed to fix mine. Whether that's permanently fixed or whether it was broken by the instability, I don't know at this point. Maybe it'll get worse again. We'd have to just carry on testing it. Now, what's interesting here is Intel's released a statement which basically means that they're extending the warranty on a number of different processors. So Intel's announced that they're extending the 2-year warranty up to a maximum of 5 years for a variety of processors, and I'll leave that on the screen so that you can see the list. The warranty basically allows you to send your processor back, do an RMA, and exchange if you've seen instability problems with it. Because it could be down to a BIOS issue, or it could be that there is a problem with the processor that needs sorting. So it's really hard to know. Like, I'm pretty experienced in these things. It's not mega experienced. I wouldn't put myself up there with Gamers Nexus, for example. But I'm more than your average user, and yet it's not clear whether my CPU is broken or whether it's okay. Maybe I should be returning it. The other problem for me is I'm building computers on a regular basis, and I don't have the money to buy loads. I bought an i7, I bought an i9, and I'm using them in builds along with motherboards that I purchased, but I'm not making enough money that I can just randomly start buying AMD stuff. So with future builds, what do? It puts me in a bit of an awkward position, because if I'm doing a build guide and I include Intel parts in it, should I be warning people, if you do the same, you might have problems, because who knows whether they will or not. If you've got one of these processors, there's no guarantees that you'll have issues. And indeed, there's meant to be a BIOS update coming in August, maybe at the time of making this video or after, depending on when you're watching, that might help prevent your CPU from degrading and becoming unstable in the first place. So maybe that's not a problem. The issue there, of course, is that the average person, let's say Joe Public, a beginner, someone that's brand new to this sort of thing, might not know about this, and they might just build a PC and then happily game on it. And they might not realize that they need to do BIOS updates. And indeed, the average person shouldn't have to do BIOS updates, should they? They shouldn't have to mess around with settings in the BIOS, trying to tweak the right voltage levels or do whatever else in order to fix a problem which could potentially then break their CPU over time. That's a real issue, I think, personally, and a big problem that needs to be fixed in a really simple way so that everybody can just get on and use their CPUs. So it's a bit of a nightmare in multiple different ways. If you already own a CPU, you're probably worried about instability issues causing dramas. If you're thinking about buying Intel, you might be put off and maybe thinking about going AMD. At the moment, obviously, there's not any new Intel CPUs, and even if there were, for the next generation, are those ones going to be fine? Who can say at this stage? And the 12th generation, which is obviously now 2 generations old, is stable and apparently is fine. So you could do that as an option. Indeed, I've thought about doing that. So Z790 and 690 motherboards, for example, will work with 12th gen CPUs because they work with 12th, 13th and 14th. So if you are worried, you could just buy a 12th gen CPU to replace your 14th or 13th gen. If you want to go through the RMA process, return it and get another one of those CPUs that might have a problem. It's a nightmare to know what to do, and it's a real problem. For me personally, it's an issue because I've got a load of Intel CPUs and I don't know if they're okay or if they're going to be balked. I've got to update loads of motherboards and hopefully try and make videos to show you what to do to fix it. The recommendations are obviously to update your BIOS as soon as possible and keep on top of those updates so that there's not a problem in the future. But that's easier said than done, and you shouldn't have to think about it, frankly. There's unfortunately no good conclusion to this story, or to this video, at least not at the moment. It's a bad time to be a PC gamer right now, which is crazy and sad. But AMD's releasing new CPUs, Intel's new ones are on the horizon. Maybe we'll get some exciting news from NVIDIA's latest GPUs when they launch, whenever that's going to happen. Hopefully we're seeing the back end of these issues. Let me know what you think I should do if you've been following and you care about my channel in terms of building. I do have AM5 motherboards. I do have one AMD CPU that I bought, but I don't have a relationship with AMD where they'll be sending me CPUs. So that's a drama. That's about it, really. I just wanted to talk about my sort of outlook on the things and thoughts on it, and acknowledge that there is an issue, but I am going to carry on building PCs, and I do have to reuse parts that I've purchased. Nearly 2025 though, isn't it? Can't believe how fast this year's going. Anyway, I hope you're having a great life. Thanks for watching.